Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tennyson E Stead, writer and director of Quantum Theory, founding member of 8-Sided Films. Happy Halloween. It's the day after Halloween as I record this. And in light of the sexual allegations spreading like wildfire across Hollywood, and in light of the situation with our president and everything else that's going on, it seems like a good time to take a step back and look at how to manage conflicts of interest in the general sense. Because I think it's a skill that a lot of people in Hollywood have neglected to develop entirely. So to begin with, what is a conflict of interest? A conflict of interest is any situation where succeeding and pursuing one of your goals, one of your priorities, can interfere and even adversely affect other goals and other priorities. And a classic example would be, on any level of any kind, if you witness some kind of misdeed, whether it's, a blue-collar crime or a white-collar crime or sexual misconduct or anything, if you witness something that has an immediate negative impact on the community and you are in a situation where your job security is at risk for reporting it, you have a conflict of interest. Your conflict is, do I put my job in jeopardy, or do I look after the safety of my community and the integrity of my community? And there's no perfect catch-all solution to these kinds of problems, but there are a handful of rules that I live by that help me mitigate easily 90% of it. And the other 10% I manage as effectively as I can, and ultimately I have a lot more resources to do that because I haven't depleted them already on the other crap that's happening in Hollywood. So, in order to avoid putting yourself in situations where you have conflicts of interest, one of the most basic things that I really, really recommend is taking a very broad look and a very broad definition of what your community is. Because, for example, one of the kinds of conflicts of interest that often comes up is, well, I'm making this movie and that person's making that movie and now we're in competition with one another. And for my movie to succeed, their movie has to fail, right? Not remotely. Ultimately, if we work together to promote a stronger relationship with our audience as a whole, if we work together to promote one another's work, and if we work together to establish a standard of excellence within the community that reinforces both our faith in one another and our relationship with the audience, makes us all feel like the work we're doing is worthwhile, then there's plenty of room in the marketplace for two shows that have similar themes or similar ideas in them. It's not, at that point, a question of trying to get an idea out into the marketplace before somebody else gets a very similar idea out into the marketplace. At that point, it's about providing the audience with something meaningful and powerful and engaging. Going back to our goals with 8-Sided Films, inspire, challenge, and delight. I don't think anybody's going to argue with feeling inspired and challenged and delighted, 2 Fridays in a row. I don't think that's a problem. So if we take a holistic view towards the health of our community and the well-being of our community, and we look after the excellence of one another's work, we support the excellence of one another's work, we encourage one another to be better, and we take the time to make it easier for one another to achieve those goals. We take the time to support one another in the actual work, show up and help one another's productions. When we see worthy productions happening, instead of fussing over what that's going to cost us, we just accept that that cost is part of the expense of building this community, and we make that a priority. Then ultimately a lot of the conflicts of interest disappear, both because, number one, we don't feel insecure about other people's work getting out there into the public. We actually wind up feeling good about it because it reflects well on us and it reflects well on our community if it's good. and we want that. And number two, because by raising the level of expectation and by supporting that level of expectation, we start to filter out some of the unwanted and unnecessary people. And it, feeling like you have to hang in there and control people in the industry because you don't actually have as much to offer, that's not the only reason why someone will abuse people in the community, but it is a reason why someone will abuse people in the community. If they feel insecure because their work isn't as good, if they feel insecure because they're not doing enough for others, then they may well turn around and, exploit their power relationship that their maleness or their role on a production provides them with to kind of close that gap and give themselves a sense of well-being and security by controlling other people. Again, not the only reason, absolutely not. However, if we make it impossible for those people to function within this industry because we're supporting enough excellence that we draw the good people to us, then we have drawn good people to us. And we still have to be vigilant, and we still have to look after one another's safety, for sure. But the need to enforce that won't be as frequent. So, I think it's important in dealing with conflicts of interest to first and foremost look at our interest in very broad terms. The success of Hollywood, the well-being of my audience, and then within that, the success of my cast and crew, the well-being of my cast and crew. These are all actual priorities for me. And I think if you're in film, they should be priorities for you. And if the people around you aren't worth supporting on that level, that's a problem independent of whether or not Hollywood deserves your support or whether or not actors or crew deserve your support. That's the people you have surrounded yourself with. That's a problem with them. So take accountability for that. Find better people, support them in their work. Create a general wellness in your community for people who are demanding excellence from themselves and who are constantly working to build a stronger community around them. And you will have, on top of your own labors, that many more people building a stronger community around us all. And then we wind up with not just fewer assholes and fewer abusers, we also wind up with better support systems when those people come to the fore. So we have to relax our notions that we are in competition with everyone around us. We have to instead look at the health of the industry and the well-being of our community as a thing that supports our work and success. Okay? It's not to say that there's no such thing as a creative conflict of interest, and certainly the more corporate your environment gets, the more difficult it becomes to enforce these kinds of policies because there's a lot more non-disclosure statements involved and there's no getting the lawyers out of that. But in general, we can support one another and support excellence within the industry and support strong community building much more rigorously and much more completely than we do. And that helps to create a platform of health and a platform of support for the people who need it most and for the people who are serving our community the hardest. And that will absolutely that's you can't bully in that environment, or you can, but you'll fail. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part of it is personal accountability. Simple conflict of interest might just be that you have a fixed amount of time and you've overextended yourself. You've taken on more work than you can actually achieve. And now one project or the other has to suffer. Your focus is going to go here, your focus is going to go there. People in Hollywood do this all the time. And traditionally, the way that they overcome this problem is by lying to both parties about how much they're actually going to do. And then they try to somehow do everything they promised to both parties without the time and the resources to actually accomplish it, and then they fail, and then usually you find someone else to blame, or you just explain that it's the traffic sucked, or whatever the case may be. Overextension and overbooking is definitely a form of conflict of interest, because you can't do everything you said you would if you're overextended. That's the definition of overextension. The key here, very simply, is to be totally honest with yourself and totally honest with the people around you about what you can and can't do. So the key to overcoming a conflict of interest built on overextension or built on overbooking is just to be completely honest with yourself about what you can and can't do, and completely honest with the people around you about what you can and can't do. And ultimately, it takes a lot of practice to understand that you're about to commit to something that is going to put you behind schedule on other work. But you have to start to learn to manage your schedule effectively, to stop trying to fit things in between other things. Just put it in your schedule when you commit to something. Take a look at your schedule at that moment, figure out when you're going to put in the time to do the things that you say you're going to do. And then when you are presented with an opportunity that creates an impossibility in that schedule, take a step back and explain the impossibility to the people around you. Now, this is going to be to the people that are offering you, they're asking you for the commitment, offering you the work. Explain that impossibility, and look for solutions that you know you can manage before you make a promise. Before you make a promise, know that you have found, and indeed go find, a solution to the problem that doesn't probably work, but actually does and will work completely. Because if that's not the case, then your promise is garbage. And you can't have that. You can't build a career on lies as much as it seems like you can. Okay? It's not good. Again, going back to the first point, it's not good for the health of the community to do that. And ultimately, it's not sustainable for you. So, when it comes to conflicts of interest of any kind of logistic nature, or that create an actual paradox. If you've signed a legal document that says you can't say or do a certain thing, and then you are getting offered an opportunity, but you can see and you think you might have to do or say that certain thing to do it, explain your situation, put a boundary around the obligation that you have, maintain that obligation because it's your obligation, and then see if there's another way to do the thing that the other person's asking you to do that doesn't involve that. And if not, let it go. Don't agree to everything on site and then try and work it out later, because it doesn't work. It creates conflicts of interest. What you have to do is take a look at the resources and time that a commitment is going to demand of you up front. And then, when you have a clear understanding of what's involved and how you're going to deliver, even if that commitment is not concrete in every aspect, take a look at the ways that it's not concrete and ask yourself, does that create a problem? And then make your agreements accordingly. So, two things basically. Be accountable for yourself, be accountable for your obligations, be accountable for the things that you say, and take a moment to make sure that you can be accountable for those things before you obligate yourself. And then make it a priority community-wide, for the audience, for collaborators, for other people in whatever field you're in, to make it a priority for them to have a network of support and health and well-being, and an industry that's alive and vibrant and constructive and positive. Make that a constant priority. Make actually doing the work of maintaining those values, not just for yourself, not just in your own work, but in the community through volunteering and helping other people, make that work a constant priority, and a lot of your conflicts of interest will disappear for the very simple reason that other people's commitments and priorities become your commitments and priorities, and you start to take a broader look at the impact of your own work and how it benefits the community. I think if we embrace these values, we're going to wind up in a lot less situations where anxiety and stress and fear put us in a position where either we wind up abusing a power relationship that we have over someone else to cultivate some sense of, I don't know, security within ourselves, or alternatively cultivating this network of support, cultivating our own accountability. Also, having those habits also helps us make sure that when someone does exercise a power relationship against us in some way in an effort to control us, that we have the strength and fortitude and support system to resist and to potentially hold that person accountable. Being a bigger part of the community, being an important part of the community, being involved in everyone's well-being does make us very, very difficult to blackball. So that's my thoughts. I think that's probably the end of the blog. Lise, thank you for editing out. I had to plug in my camera was about to die. Thank you for editing that out. Thank you for watching. Please give us a thumbs up if you like the video. Give us a subscribe if you want to see more from 8-Sided Films. There's one of two announcements coming your way in the very, very near future. I'm looking forward to either one of them. And big things are happening at 8-Sided Films. I look forward to sharing that news, and I look forward to introducing some new actors as well. And until then, have yourself a great evening. Happy Halloween, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.